Hello everyone and welcome to watch my next review, and this one is interesting because of the several reasons. First, it's my first review devoted to the mobile phone. Our today's hero is the Jiayu G1. It's a budgetary Android phone made in China. Also, it is the cheapest among all the devices I tested so far, and it is of course the smallest among all the devices I tested. So let's take a look of what it's capable for. This is the first phone, but I also have several other phones already and I'm waiting for even more. This phone has also 256 megabytes of random access memory, 256 megabytes of flash memory. It has also the Wi-Fi Bluetooth module. It has 2 SIM slots. It supports the memory cards, of course. Now let's take a look at the box of this phone. As you can see, it's absolutely not traditional. It's a plastic box, and it's rather hard, so it protects the phone very well. Now let's take a look inside of the box. So inside the box you can see the standard charger with the USB plug. It's a 500 mAh 5 volts standard charger. Then there is a standard USB to micro USB data cable. It's a manual, documentation, it's all in Chinese. Also, there is a headphone with microphone. It's a quality check card. There is a adapter for the European plug, and what is the most interesting here, it's the second battery. Both of batteries are 1350 milliamperes, and it's a real capacity, so the batteries are quite good. The box, as you can see, it's made of plastic, it's rather thick, so it protects the phone quite well. Now let's take a look at the phone itself. As you can see, it's based on the Android 2.3.6, and let's consider its technical specs. This phone is based on the Mediatek MTK6515 system on chip, which is Cortex A9 1.0 GHz system on chip with a rather powerful GPU for such a budgetary chip. The GPU here is PowerVR 531 Ultra. It's with enhanced frequencies. So both CPU and GPU are very well for such a budgetary phone, because this phone costs less than $70, what I should say. So for such phone the performance is quite good. Now let's turn the phone off and see what's inside it. So what we can see here is the second battery. It's already installed into the phone, one 1350 milliamperes. There are two slots for standard mini SIM cards. One of them should support 3G and one is only compatible with Edge and GPRS. But unfortunately the 3G in this phone is only compatible by the frequencies with Chinese mobile carriers, so in most countries you can only use this phone as a GSM phone. It supports 850, 900s, 1800s and 1900s MHz frequencies of the GSM. Also, as you can see, there is a slot for the micro SD memory card, and it supports up to at least 32 GB, but I suspect that even 64 GB will be quite operable. Now let's see what else is interesting about this phone. There is a back camera, you can see 5.0, but in reality this camera is 3 megapixels without autofocus but with flash. Here is the speaker, here is the name of the manufacturer, and as you can see the back panel is made of soft touch plastic and it's very good. The building quality is absolutely great, especially for the price. No problems at all, I should say. What else is interesting? There are 4 touch buttons. It's a home, menu, back and search touch buttons. Here is the frontal camera. It's 0.3 megapixels and it also works quite well. Here is the speaker for the phone. And there are also 2 additional sensors. Here you won't see it right now, but I'll show their work a bit later. Also, here is the microphone, here is the micro USB, here is the power button, here is a standard 3.5 mm headphone plug, which supports the microphone also, of course, and here is the volume buttons, volume up and volume down. The phone has 3.5 inches 480 by 320 pixels screen. It's a TFT TN screen, not an IPS screen, so maybe the viewing angles are not so perfect as for the IPS screens, but again we should remember about the price. It's only less than $70, so for such price it's quite good. And again, I like the building quality of this phone very well. So the phone is based on Android 2.3.6, so it's a bit obsolete compared to the other tablets and the future phones I'm going to test very soon. I have them already. For instance, here is the Jiayu G2, which is based on the dual-core MTK6577 and supports 3G. It's a very good phone with a great screen. I'll test it a bit later. And also I have the large, very large, it's 5.7 inches HD screen. This phone is the iNew i2000, and it's based on the newest MTK6589. So I also will test it a bit later, this phone. But our today's review is devoted to the Jiayu G1, so let's back to it. Now let's test the screen. First is the viewing angles, not so bad here, not so bad here, not so good here, but and quite good also here. Not so good here also, as you can see. The viewing angles are average, so they are not be they can't be compared to the IPS screens, but still, for such a budgetary phone, the screen is quite good. Here is the minimum brightness, average and maximum brightness. And maximum brightness is also quite good for this phone. There is a light sensor and it works. I'll show it to you a bit later. Also, this phone has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth module. Both works quite well without any problems. Now let's test the touch screen of this phone. This phone only supports 2 points touch screen, but it's enough for most of the applications, I should say. The touchscreen is rather good. We can also test it here. So as you can see, no problems with the touchscreen. It works quite well. Now it's time to test the sensors. Again, for such an inexpensive phone, the number of sensors is very good. First, it supports the accelerometer, and it's absolutely normal accelerometer. It works without any problems. You can see it work here. Also there is a light sensor and it also works without any problems. You can see the values changes of the light sensor. So it works. And there is also proximity sensor. So it's situated somewhere here. As you can see, it also works. The microphone works well. We can see also the voltage of the battery, absolutely no problems here. So all the necessary sensors are here in this phone. Also there is a vibromotor as in all the other phones. And now it's time to test the settings. They are quite traditional for the Android of the second generation. As I already said, it's Android 2.3.6. It's similar. It's quite similar. So there is a Wi-Fi and Bluetooth module. And both work very well, I should say. Automatic brightness works without any problems also. This phone doesn't have the integrated GPS module, but it can use the Wi-Fi for the location, and it works. I'll show it to you a bit later. The internal storage is only 256 megabytes, and about 150 megabytes will be secured for the Android, so the amount of free memory is very low. But fortunately this phone supports the micro SD cards up to 32, and I suspect it also supports even 64 gigabytes and more. So if you don't have enough space, you can also buy an inexpensive memory card. Now check the languages. There is a Russian, German, English of course, Spanish, French and many other languages. It's not a full range of languages. Some of the Android 4.0, 4.1 and 4.2 tablets and phones have more languages, but still it's not so bad. Android 2.3.6. So that's it. Now let's check the root. The phone is not rooted out of the box, but I managed to root it using some tricks from the forums. I'll leave the links for you in the description to this video. You can see the phone is rooted. Now let's check the Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi is quite good in this phone. As you can see, it's about minus 42 dBms at the moment, and the phone sees many other networks. So near the router it's about minus 26, minus 27 dBms, which is quite good. So the Wi-Fi module and the Wi-Fi antenna in this phone are very good, especially for such budgetary phones. They work without any problems. The sound quality in the phone mode is also quite good in this phone. I tried this phone as my main phone for a couple of days, and I had absolutely no problems with the sound quality. And you can also use two SIM cards, two different numbers at the same time. So both of them will be available, but if you use one of them to speak, then the second will be unavailable for this time. But still, you can use the two SIM cards, two numbers without problems actually. And the sound quality is also good. The batteries here, as I already said, it's 1350 milliamperes, and considering the CPU and GPU are quite modern, they are comparatively modern, it's 40 nanometers system on chip, so it's quite energy efficient. So this battery is absolutely good for this phone in terms of battery life. I'll tell you about it a bit later also. The amount of free random access memory is not so perfect, of course, because it's only 256 megabytes. As you can see, at the moment the amount of free memory is 78 megabytes, and you may free up to about 100 megabytes, not more, unfortunately. So you should consider this value. You will be able to run most of the applications, but some of the memory hungry games which would run on this phone, considering its CPU and GPU, will not be able to run because of the low amount of free random access memory. But still it's compatible with most of the games, and it's quite compatible with almost all the applications. And now we can check the real performance of this phone. And first let's take a look at the work of internet. It's better to use the Opera Mini because it needs less memory, but you can also use a full version of the Opera and it will be working quite well. I'll show it to you a bit later. My traditional BBC News site. Of course it will be quite fast. Now let's check the full version of the Opera. It also works quite well. So this is a beta version of the last Opera Mobile, and also, as you can see, it works. Maybe it's a bit slow because of the low amount of free random access memory, but still it works quite well. Okay, now let's check the YouTube.
You're trying to disarm me illegally.
I'm going to disarm you.
Illegally.
No, sir.
Am I?
No, sir.
Am I threatening you?
Once I find out there's no issue.
Yes, this is my son. We're out doing.
So as you can see, YouTube works quite well in low quality and in high quality. The HD is not supported because of the screen resolution. Now it's time to check the Google Maps. And as you can see, the positioning works quite well, and even without the GPS, you may use the positioning in cities. The performance is also quite good because the processor and the GPU are very fast, so we are not going to experience any substantial problems with this. And as you can see, it even supports the three-dimensional maps from the latest Google map, and it works quite well, very fast and fluent. I can say it's both because of the comparatively low screen resolution, so the performance is good, and because of the quite powerful CPU and GPU in this phone. So no problems with this also. And now let's test the Play Store. Out of the box this phone comes with no Play Store, but thanks to the forums there is an updated and enhanced firmware, so I also managed to install the Google Market, and then it updated but by itself to the Play Store. And as you can see, the Play Store is absolutely operable here, it works, and I actually installed most of the applications directly out of the Play Store. Absolutely no problems here. All the programs may be installed here, no errors and no problems. Also, you can find the instructions how to install this Play Store on this phone in the description to this video, please check it. Now we can also check the tune in internet radio. The loudspeaker is quite loud and the sound quality is rather good, I would say. So the internet radio also works quite well. And now let's test the performance. It's very interesting to check how the phone for less than $70 may perform in the latest tests. As always, let's start with the Antutu benchmark. And here is the result. As you can see, it's 5,621 points. It's not the best result, of course, but still, for less than $70, this is a quite good result. And you can see the performance of this phone by itself, it's quite good. The CPU score total, it's 1,159 points. Of course, it cannot be compared with the high frequency dual cores and quad cores, but for this phone and for this resolution of the screen, it's quite enough. And the GPU score is very good, it's 3,196 points, and the three-dimensional graphics shows about 2,800 points, which is also quite good. And here is a detailed test. You can see it here. Now let's check the information about this device. The brand is Jiayu, the phone name is G1, the CPU is MT6575, but it's not correct. The real CPU is Mediatek MTK6515. It has the same performance as the MT6575, but it only supports the 3G frequencies of the Chinese operators, and in most of the other countries this phone is only compatible with GSM. Also you can see the CPU frequency, it's not correct. The real CPU frequency is 1 GHz, not 2 GHz of course. The screen resolution is correct, is 320 by 480 points, and the pixels density is also correct, it's about 160 points per inch. Here you can see the GPU, the memory, the cameras, 3.1 megapixels for the main camera and 0.3 megapixels for the frontal camera, the Android version, and so on. Now let's check the quadrant. The frame rate is very good in this SAM, as you can see. The total result is 1649 points. Of course, it's not so perfect for today, but still the result is quite good. It's about the result of the Samsung Nexus S and HTC Desire HD. Now let's run the Velomo. And you can see the results also. 754 points for the HTML5 and 309 points for the metal. And these results are also rather good. The results of each HTML5 is about 2 times lower than, for instance, for the dual-core 1.6 GHz Rockchip 3066, and the metal score is only about maybe 40% lower than for the Rockchip. It's about 500 points for the Rockchip, and even the lower results for the latest quad-core chips. Any of the latest chips managed to get even 600 points in the metal subtests, and this phone shows 309 points here, so the result is quite good. Now let's check the nanomark. And I hope you can see the result. It's 31.1 and the last run is 30.1 frame per second, and as you can see the test runs quite fluently. Let's run the TG basemark also. And yes, this phone is capable to run the TG benchmark. The frame rate is not perfect, but it's rather fluent, as you can see. And the picture quality is quite perfect. The low screen resolution would allow this phone to run even the heaviest games for today, but unfortunately the low amount of free random access memory won't allow to do it. And here is the result, 16.8 frames per second, and I should say it's far not the lowest result among those devices I tested. The result is rather good, and considering this test doesn't love the PowerVR GPUs, it prefers the Melee 400s, the result is even better. So 16.8 frames per second. In GL benchmark, this phone is able to run the Egypt standard and the fill rate test. In the fill rate test it shows about 2.5 megapixels, and this result is rather good. It's a bit better result than for the Melee 400s MP1 and a bit worse result than for the Melee 400s MP2. So here is the performance of this tablet, and we won't be able to run the latest tests like Epic Citadel and 3D Mark because of the low amount of free random access memory. But we can test some games on this tablet. But first let's run the gallery. Here is the pictures made by this phone, by its main camera. They are quite good for the 3 megapixels camera, I should say, especially for such money. And the gallery works also quite well, as you can see. Also we can check the battery life. The battery life is absolutely good in this phone. I would say it is capable to run for at least 5-6 hours in games, and in the reading mode with the low brightness of the screen I would say it's up to 10 hours. So the battery life is very good, and up to 1 week in the waiting mode. Also you may use the Mobile Uncle tools for Android, which you can install directly from the Google Play to control your phone based on the Mediatek chip. You can enter the engineer mode of Mediatek using this application. So now let's run some games. This phone is not created for the heavy games, but you can run many of the games, including some graphic intensive games, especially two-dimensional games. For any two-dimensional games the amount of memory is quite good, and the performance is also quite good. The simple game is of course quite playable here.
Charlie receiving.
So this game also runs quite fluent, as you can see. Now let's run the Angry Birds. As you can see, the Android doors are absolutely playable. Maybe the screen is a bit small, but the game itself runs perfectly. Now, let's check the castle tower defense. This game also quite playable. The Fruit Ninja also playable. So that's it with the games. So now it's time to make some conclusions about it. I personally like it very much, especially considering its price. Of course, it's not the best phone and it's not the best Chinese phone, but considering the price of less than $70 including the shipping costs, the phone is absolutely great, I should say. It is very fast, it runs most of the application, it's compatible with the Google Play if you want Scare to work with it a little bit. It has rather good screen, it's not 320 by 240 as you may expected from such a price, but it's 320 by 480 and it's good, so the pixels density is rather good on the screen. This phone also have both Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. It has several sensors, including the light sensor, proximity sensor and accelerometer. It has several touch buttons. It has a standard 3.5mm headphones jack. It has two batteries inside the package. It has also the headphones, the data cable and the charger. So the package is quite good. So I personally think you won't find the better phone for such money. You can buy this phone for your children, it's cheap and it has a good quality, and you can also spare money by using two different operators in this phone, because it is compatible with at the same time two SIM cards. So I consider this phone as the best budgetary phone for today actually, and it's based on the real Android 2.3.6, so it's compatible with thousands and thousands of applications. Unfortunately, there is no GPS, and the amount of free random access memory doesn't allow to run the heaviest three-dimensional games. But it's the only drawback of this phone. All the other specifications are quite good. So I recommend this phone as a budgetary choice. And let me introduce my next reviews. I already showed a couple of phones to you. It's a Jiayu G3 and a MIUI 2000. It's a very nice and much more expensive, of course, phones, but they are better than the Jiayu G1. Also, I'm waiting for a couple of other phones. It's a here Cesar H7500 Plus, based on the Mediatek MTK6515, and Jiayu G2S with the newest screen, OGS screen with a high pixels density, and it's based on the updated version of the MTK6577, which is Cortex A9 1.2 GHz. Also, I already have a great tablet. It's a Hyundai T7S. It's a quad-core tablet based on Exynos Quad, which is the same chip as installed in the Samsung Galaxy S3, and also it has 2 GB of random access memory. It has the two cameras, including the back camera with 5 megapixels autofocus and flash. And what is also interesting about this tablet, it has the integrated GPS module, which works very well. So I'm going to test it soon also. And the tablet you wait most, it's of course the Cube U30 GT2. The only problem is the amount of my free time which I can devote to my reviews. So I'm sorry, but maybe I'll not be able to make all the reviews very fast. And that's it for today, so thank you for attention. Goodbye.